So welcome, you guys. I don't know how many of you guys get songs stuck in your head. There's a lot of clairaudience in our community here. And I'm curious, what songs are stuck in your head right now? I have had the same song stuck in my head for a while now, which is, I don't even know, I think it's like maybe is it a Disney or something? I don't know why. It's the song I've got in my head is that, in the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Like that refrain, like over and over and over and over for like a week now. So what does that tell us about February as we're moving into the energy of February? The lion is sleeping. So yeah, hey, good morning, you guys. Here's Amina. There you go. Hey, Rebecca, Teresa. Great to see you guys. So good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining me. But yeah, so I'm wondering, what are you guys hearing in your head? And I would like a different song. I would like a new song now. I am tired of this song in my head. So, and I keep like listening. I'm like, I heard it. I got the message. I hear it. Can we switch to something else? Nope, it's still the jungle. And you're saying the lion is sleeping. Oh man, I know. So it's so interesting. So we are now out of that feeling of where we were before, where there was that stagnant energy, and now we're in a different phase. It's a really different phase, and it feels like that. I think that sleeping lion is, and it kind of fits with this message today, that it feels like stuff is unearthing and moving, and it's like there's this underground stuff that's happening in like the earth and in people. And it was fascinating starting. So you guys know I started the Circle of 12 this past week, and it's a beautiful group that's come together, and I'm super excited about it. And I'm so sorry for those who weren't, that I couldn't make it be more than 12. There really is a limit to how many could be in the group and how many I can work with at a time. So I'm sorry if you missed out this time. I'm sure there will be another one in the future. I never know, but I'm sure they will do it again. And I do have a way to put you on the advanced notification list if you want to make sure that you don't miss out next time. So just let me know. You can just comment or send me a message, and I will add you to that list. So you hear about it first next time. So, okay, so today's message is an interesting one, and is about how we express across multiple timelines, and about how the earth relates to us as we're going through that process. It's a really hard thing for us to wrap our heads around, a really hard thing for me to wrap my head around. So maybe I should speak for myself. Maybe you guys, it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. To me, it's a little confusing. So, and Edie is saying, yes, underground stuff. There are moments when I get filled with rage and then I quell it with compassion. But the last 2 weeks, there have been these moments where I rage out, which is something that I always did in my past. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think that's the feeling. It is this weird kind of like, oh, there's this stuff underneath. There's that sleeping lion, and then it comes up, and then it's down, and then it's up. Yeah, it's a lot of movement at the moment, internal and external. So, all right. So let's go ahead and dig into the message. And like I said, they're talking first about us, about what it is to be human and how we express across multiple timelines. And then they show us how that relates to the earth and what's happening with the earth. So super interesting. Okay, so they say, we sing your being into what is now tomorrow to hear what is developing. You're rising in tempo with what frustrates you now. Your own being must exhume and bring itself into rightness, to adjust its own furor, to its own exemplifying of the many varieties of being that you are. You have within your own self so many voices, the sameness profound that you are seeking internal, the juxtaposition to what is now forming in your external expression can only be achieved in the purging of this pressure that builds internal. So here they're saying that we have all these different layers of ourself, all these different, they said you have within yourself so many voices, and that what we're seeking is this sameness internal, where we have where there's not this juxtaposition between competing desires and interests between the different layers of ourself, where we're kind of in friction or at war with ourselves, where there's part of you that wants to express, and there's part of you maybe from a past life or a past way of being that's like, no, I don't want to. Your small self or your inner child or whatever that's like, I don't want to express. And then there's the adult side that's like, I really want to do this thing, right? There's all these parts inside you that are in conflict, all these different voices. And what we're seeking, they're saying we seek that sameness profound, is how they describe it. A sameness profound that you're seeking internal, where everything in you is aligned, where you have a complete understanding of yourself, and there's no place where you're in friction with yourself any longer, where there's no resistance, is what we're seeking. And say that's a juxtaposition to what we're forming in our external expression right now, which is all these different layers that a lot of which are in conflict, our internal self. And they said that can only be achieved in the purging of this pressure that builds internal. So, and it really is coming up. Like right now, it's that sort of some of our deepest wounds are coming up right now. So, and you're saying stuffed secret shadows we don't want to look at, that's starting to come out individually and collectively. Yes, it's that Scorpio energy in the nodes. Ain't no joke. Oh, thank you for bringing up the how that's supported in astrology. But yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly the feeling. All right, so it's about to get wild. I think you're right. I think it is like a jungle. So, okay. All right, so then we go on to the next paragraph. So they're saying that it has to be purged, right? Everything is building up inside. It has to be purged. They say there is dire requirement of these beings you suffer internal to find their own placement in your comprehension, for you to bring them external to your mind and awareness, to live and breathe their surfacing comprehension. And this parity we find, meaning to express that you are but the same as the world as she evolves. So here they're trying to say that that you have all these different parts of yourself, and you are trying to bring them up and express them and see them and understand them, and to let them surface to your comprehension. And they're saying that there's a parity here, that there's a matching or an equality between what you're experiencing and what the earth is experiencing. So the earth is going through its own evolution process, and we know about that. Like the earth is all of this stuff that's going on. Yes, it's global warming, and yes, it's all these things, but that's an energy, and it's an energy of her moving through her own evolving. So as we evolve, as she is also going through her own process. So they go on to say, all must express. Your housing, it beats to many rhythms. Understand yourselves, dears, as beings woven through time to your understanding and dimension as beings woven through time to your understanding and dimension to ours. You are layered even in your own comprehension of now. This moment sacrifices itself to the layers of temporal fusion between the many selves you have occupied. We must explain. I'm so glad they end with that. We must explain. Yes, you must. So, okay, they say, let's just go through it again. They say all must express. So everything that's in you, all the parts of yourself have to express. Your housing, so the body that you have, and that includes all of your energy body, everything, your housing that you're living in right now, it beats to many rhythms. Understand yourselves, dears, as beings woven through time to your understanding. So we understand the concept of time, and we know ourselves, like you know yourself. You can remember yourself at 8, and you can remember yourself at 20, right? You remember yourself as a being who was created through time. And to them, they say, and dimension to ours. So they understand us through the different dimensions where we're living. So they see us in a way that we can't at the moment. And that's understanding not only through time, but also through dimensions. They say, you are layered even in your own comprehension of now. So that's true. We bring, and we even know there's times when you are dealing with things where you're totally aware that you're triggered because it makes you remember something about yourself from how you used to be, or something that was in your life before. Like you're aware of the layerings that happen inside of you, that you feel, and you're kind of trying to work through at different times in your life. You say, this moment now sacrifices itself to the layers of temporal fusion between the many selves you have occupied. So what they're saying, the moment of now is never just itself. The moment of now is always layered with what you're worrying about in the future or what you're remembering from the past. So now sacrifices itself to this temporal fusion. I love how they talk. The fusion of all these different times that your own consciousness is carrying. Not to mention all the stuff you're totally unaware of that's emitting from you all the time, right? And you're saying, I just adore the vernacular the angels use. Yeah, I do too. Like, it's amazing how they phrase things. It adds, it's funny because you have to really pull it apart, but it adds clarity because they are so precise in how they say it. That's what I find to be so cool. It's beautiful and incredibly clear once you really break down the meaning. It holds so much, So, okay, so let's keep going. And they say, we must explain. And we say, yes, please. Your housing, your being, your life you lead encompasses the rhythms and teachings of all you have been. And these themes of your lives and their similarities are spoken into this being now where you are. Placidly, you form the illusion that all is now and becoming as it is. But reality, as you feel it, comes from layers in yourself, and these layers form to make potential gateways of expression, divining learning across boundaries of time. So, yeah, okay. They're saying that that everything that's in that what you're experiencing now, this life that you're in, it encompasses the rhythms and teachings of everything you've ever been across all time, space, and dimension, right? That you have everything inside of you, that everything you've ever been is inside you. And these themes of your life and their similarities. So as you're going through your life, there's going to be, and you probably have experiences, certain patterns that seem to repeat. Maybe you end up dating the same person over and over again, or you end up in situations that remind you, oh my gosh, this has come up again. There's certain patterns that we repeat, that we struggle through. So they're saying that these themes of your lives and their similarities are spoken into this being now where you are. So you're kind of playing out a certain drama or certain story that you can play out in a bunch of different ways. And they're saying that these themes, right, these similarities are spoken into being in this presence where you are right now. They say placidly, sort of like with this kind of like, oh, you're just kind of living in the now, like so many of us kind of, when we come to the planet, before we wake up, we are just kind of like assuming that everything that right now is all it is. But in reality, as you feel it comes from layers in yourself, and these layers form to make potential gateways of expression, divining learning across all boundaries of time. So as you're working your way through these patterns that maybe show up in your life or triggers that you experience, that those moments are gateways that allow you to bring forward these elements of yourself that are from other lifetimes, other dimensions. They're connections. They're almost like you can imagine them like strings through time where you are living a similar theme in multiple expressions at once. And that's where it gets really interesting, where you're doing it at once. All right, so let's go to the next paragraph. Legend has you bound to this time now, this understanding of yourself as complete. But you are found permeating reality in all its expressions, and you are housing in this one the layers of meanings that you carry through all time and understanding of yourself. So what does this mean to your comprehension? That you are spoken into this life with understandings and comprehension, recognizing what was before or in other comprehension. So they're really trying to get across this idea that you are not just this one layer of yourself, that you're living right now concurrently many different lives and many different timelines and many different places, that everything happens at the same time. So when you talk about past lives, we think of them as past because we're on this linear timeline, right? We're on this, we think of like we have this awareness of yesterday and tomorrow. But from the perspective of I guess the universe or how things actually work outside of this limitation of time, all of it's happening at the same time. And when you have these overlapping moments, these places where you're reworking through these lessons or these things, these dramas that you're playing out in your own timeline, you are connecting and pulling through things from all these other parts of being that you are. And I know people who have actually experienced like being in another dimension or another timeline like instantaneously, where they have a flash and it's like, oh my gosh, I know this from somewhere else. Where is it? And they're all of a sudden they're sharing. You can almost imagine that they're connecting to themselves in another timeline and feeling what they're feeling in that timeline, right? That there's these, they're like portals of knowledge as they describe it. So it's super interesting to think of it this way. Temporal fusion. Yes. I love that too. So, okay, so they're saying the reality as you feel it comes from layers in yourself, all these various layers, and these layers form to make potential gateways of expression, divining learning across boundaries of time. So that's the objective, is to learn. The whole point of this is to learn, and across all the boundaries of time. So it really is this idea that we can be multi-present. All right, next paragraph. That was the previous sentence or paragraph that I was reading there again. Sorry. Okay. In the end of this paragraph, they say that you are spoken into this life with understandings and comprehension, recognizing what was before or in other comprehension. And I love how they say that you were spoken into this life. That because they do always refer to our energy like a song. And so we come in with all of these layers and all this understanding that we are not a blank slate by any means, that we are working through all these different dimensions and all these different layers all at the same time. All right, next paragraph. They say, you may bring into this reality some aspects that existed in a prior time, as we think of timelines, which is concurrent to now. So there it is. It's happening at the same time. And your offering of an expression of that life prepares you now to engage in what you found here. So stories and livelihoods and meaningful partnerships repeat, one time after another. You find your voice and expression renewed, but patterns of force remain. Your housing shifts, but you are here, embodied much the same, in timing different, but living meaning and seen again. So this is super interesting, you guys. And this has come up. Okay, so I asked for one of the people who's in the Circle of 12, I asked her permission to share something that came up in her session. And in her session, they were working on clearing a very specific pattern, but they told, we was channeling the angels, they told her about a specific lifetime in which she had been living in China, and she was a person who made fabric, but her real focus was on making the dyes. And they showed her working with this bowl and this like a mortar and pestle kind of a situation. And it was all about the berries. She was really into working with berries, and she had knowledge that had passed down through her family around how to fix dyes, how to make really, really vivid dyes, and how to fix those into fabric so they wouldn't bleed out. And this was her, her passion and her love was all around this, is what she did. And they showed her, her fingers were always stained with berries. It was they told this really, really rich story about this life she had. And then they went on from there to talk about what needed healing from that experience and how it carried forward into this life. So when we finished the session, she tells me that in this life, she has married a man whose last name is Weaver, and his profession is creating dyes. And her daughter is now studying the history of fashion, and her grandmother was really into fabrics and sewing. So this is like a perfect example of what they're talking about, that the like our bodies change, and the players, like the story kind of changed, the circumstances change, but the story is the same, that they have these certain same elements, certain, your livelihoods may be the same. There's these things that we carry forward from lifetime to lifetime to allow us to play out a specific theme. And those similarities that they're talking about, these places where things match, create portals from one dimension that we're living or timeline that we're living to another. They create connections which help us to process and learn what it is that we're supposed to be trying to experience as a soul. So, right? Super cool. Super cool. And you're saying the movie Cloud Atlas. Does that have a similar, I don't know the movie, I haven't seen it. That would be interesting to watch now. And you're saying, I'm having these experiences too. You're saying, okay, here it is. There was a show on Netflix I've never seen before, and as I'm watching it, I feel like I've seen it before already. It was so wild. It was like, okay, a different timeline self. I see you, right? And it is possible, by the way, to have two aspects of yourself alive right now. So you could have, and if it's a current show, you could have another self that's living on the planet right now that's watching that same show, which is so crazy to think about, but it could happen. So you're saying that happened to me recently too. It was so trippy. Yeah. And then I've never been intentionally, Rebecca's saying, I've never been intentionally making different decisions and choices in my life so I can jump timelines and keep my life interesting. Oh, that is really interesting to mix things up. I wonder how that would turn out. But yeah, so anyway, so clearly a lot of you have experienced this, and I have too, where you see things. I know people who are very tuned into certain objects that they had from past lives. So yeah, very, very interesting. All right, and they're very specific here. They say stories and livelihoods and meaningful partnerships. So relationships repeat one time after another. You find your voice and expression renewed, but patterns of force remain. So the major threads stay the same, right? That you're working through these specific, whatever it was, the specific issues that you're trying to purge. The housing shifts, but you are here, embodied much the same, in timing different, but living meaning and seen again. And if you guys have done past life regressions, I've had in several regressions where I have seen, like there'll be a person in the scene, and I will see the head of one of my current day children sort of superimposed on that body. And I know that it is that person in that life. So I had one, for example, where I was the wife of a sea captain. It was a very happy life. The second half of the life was very, very happy. And I had two older daughters, and I had a younger child that was actually like my niece or nephew. I couldn't tell the gender, but younger, who was living with me, and superimposed upon their face was my current day daughter. And I've had stuff like that happen many times where I knew that, okay, she was there with me in that life. And I've had that with my son as well. But anyway, so if you've ever experienced that, you're aware that you've had the same people, similar relationships and dynamics that you're playing out lifetime over lifetime. So interesting. Okay, so they go on to say, to fill this understanding, you will gap and crawl across the layers of its expression. You will unfurl and see it from all sides, to be the one who comprehends yourself and the layers you contain. Your meaningful existence depends upon the same culmination of feeling of all things that remain the same, but offer new understanding. You take these forward. You live them fully. They embrace you now. The meaning of times past you regurgitate into this life and feel again and wonder at the meaning, placing yourself on all sides for understanding. So this gets to this idea that you may have a specific theme or story that you're playing out in multiple lifetimes. And it's not that you have just one of these. You could be playing out multiple different themes and have several threads going where you're kind of investigating this experience and investigating this other experience. But they're saying that the other thing that can happen here is you can switch roles, that sometimes you can be the good guy and sometimes you can be the bad guy, right? You're going to try to see it from all sides of understanding. So, and we know that we have all been the bad guy. We have all come in at times and been the schmuck. And that's the hardest role, by the way. If and that's a big life learning for me, that if you have schmucks in your life, people that you feel wronged by, I think those are some of the people in many cases that we owe our deepest gratitude towards, that they are the ones who have helped us to grow, to face, they've been the conflict that we needed to force us out of our sleepy, right? So yeah, coming in knowing that you're going to be the schmuck, who wants to do that? No one wants to be the schmuck. But someone did it for you, right? Someone did it for me too. We are grateful. I am grateful for the schmucks I have known. I doesn't mean you have to like them. Doesn't mean you have to like them in this life, but you could still feel grateful to their higher selves for willing to take on that role, and to know that you have also done that for other people. You have come in for others and been the schmuck, so that they could go through their contrast and experience it, and so that you could learn and experience it from all sides. So. All right, so you're saying, Elizabeth is saying, it's probably likely that you and your dad have shared lifetimes before, if this is the case. Maybe not in the same dynamic, though. Yes, absolutely. And you're saying, Brandon is saying, I think you may really appreciate today's teaching. Oh, okay, thank you. A deja vu related to this. Is deja vu related to this? Do you know, it very well may be. I would think so, yes. That would be my assumption. I can't say that for certain, but that would be my assumption. Depending on what it is, right? Depending on what the circumstances are of the deja vu. But yeah, I think there's also times where, like I know for myself in my dream time, sometimes I will move ahead in my timeline and see things that are happening in the future of this timeline, and then I experience them later. So that can also be a deja vu, where you're in your dream state, you're experiencing, or it can be scenes in your life that you, before you come in. So I had a dream once where I was practicing for this life, where in the dream I was with a guide and I was looking at my life like a movie, and like a film strip, and I was working through certain sections, and I was looking at like really important sections of my life, and I was looking at the scene like frame by frame, and I was playing it, and then I would jump into it, and I do it, I would act it out, right? And I would see the outcome, and then I would jump out and we'd discuss it and say, okay, did that get us the desired effect? We would make a few changes to the film, and then I would jump in and we would do it again. And we did this over and over and over again, rehearsing certain scenes before I was born, so that I knew that those scenes would turn out the way that they needed to, so that I would have the journey I needed. So that could be another reason for deja vu, is that it could be there are certain scenes that you rehearsed before coming. So, and you're saying, I have strong intuitions of my lifetimes with my son. Yeah, I am sure with those super important relationships, we've been together before, right? You're saying the major schmuck in my life taught me to forgive and compassion. Now I can use those learning in relationships. Me too, absolutely. And I think it's such a hard lesson to learn, but so incredibly valuable. You say myself and my son and dad are all born within a week of each other at different years, obviously. Yes, obviously. So, okay, all right, moving on. They say, and this internal shifting of perspective is mirrored by Earth, her living, her breathing yourself. So here they go into the perspective of Earth and how, that everything that is true in small is also true in large. So in the way that we are having an experience, our experience of self across multiple timelines and all this kind of stuff. So our evolving, Earth is having a similar experience. So this internal shifting of perspective is mirrored by Earth, her living, her breathing yourselves. So many feelings of wonderment to unfold. All must be expressed and housing changed much as you are understanding. You must field your folly, as does she, where you are. You feel your presence into reality, and so must she. Lives lived, planetary awareness, it draws her being into expression. All voices understood. You are one among the many, all hearing, sounding, feeling, expressing. All must culminate below and bring itself into fruition to be seen and felt as you are being seen. So here, this is interesting. So they're talking about how Earth evolves, and it's similar but not exactly the same. That it's like we are part of the Earth. That humans being here, being embodied. So your spirit, your soul is not born of the Earth, but the body that you're living in is born of the Earth, and you're literally made up of the stuff that the Earth is made of. So it's almost like we are like cells on the Earth, or like neurons, is probably a better example, or like neurons running around on the face of the Earth. So in our experience is her experience. So as we're going through all this stuff, so is she, right? And they're saying that it draws her being into expression as we are moving through. And think about, like, as humanity, think about culturally how a society evolves over time and learns and becomes hopefully better, right? As we mature in terms of our understanding of things like human rights and equality and things like that, how we become more sensitive to one another over time. And just look at the massive migration from the cavemen to where we are now in terms of our understanding of each other and the world and our knowledge and all this stuff, right? And think of that as her evolution, these grander patterns, and all exemplified by each individual person, right? Each one of us little neurons running around on the surface of Earth. So, and all of this culminates below, because the Earth is, her sort of feeling self must be in there in the middle, right? So it's culminating underneath, and it has to come up for expression. So, okay, so we go on to say, all must culminate below and bring itself into fruition to be seen and felt as you are being seen. Next paragraph, they say, by now your being has felt itself anew, a sense of self, tethering to this now. But you bring all that you are into this enfoldment. You evolve each second across all expressions of what you are simultaneously. You feel the full journey in all its parts without a second thought. It happens naturally. So they're saying that, and I've seen this in healing sessions, where if you heal something in now, it heals you like across all of you, like all your dimensions, because everything's happening at the same time. So it's like healing, it's healing across all time. So, which is hard to imagine, because then you're like, well, then how do these other dimensions unfold? But it does. If you release it here, it releases it everywhere. And you're saying, love today's teaching so much. I'm so glad. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? You're saying, Lisa Chapman Klinger, it took me a long time to even be able to say this, but I'm grateful to him for that. I know we got back together in this life to clear karma, but it lasted longer than our soul contracts were for. It took a major toll on my spirit. Yeah, to get to that place of being thankful for those really hard ones, it's something to be proud of. It really is. Like, that's a badge one. I think we should have like a special like tattoo. I don't have any tattoos, but if it would be like, yeah, that badge of honor for having learned, having gotten to a place of forgiveness and gratitude for the really hard knocks. You're saying, Henrika's saying, going through the sea right now. It feels like jumping in a portal, very loving upgrade, aligning with Gaia and a new quantum awareness and a higher love. I love that. I think the earth knows we are not ready for it to release yet. Thanks for its mercy, but we are to prepare for sure. Yeah. I think the earth knows we are not ready for it to, oh yes, that was the same comment. All expressions of this, of who you are at once. This is fabulous. Yeah. It is amazing, isn't it? This idea, quantum healing. That really is it. They're talking about that it happens everywhere and it happens naturally without a second thought. It isn't something we have to orchestrate or worry about. And it just literally, it's like this incredible machine that we are, that all this stuff is happening below our awareness. In the same way that your heart beats and your lungs breathe without you having to plan it or think it. Like, you're just this incredible machine of experiencing and learning and healing. And that is amazing, right? It's an amazing thing. All right, next paragraph, they say, and this now they're going back to talking about Earth. So they say, okay, you're doing this, you're healing all at once naturally. And they're saying, and so does she. Your many beings of humanity erupt upon her surface and play out the drama within her being for all to be seen, felt, and understood. Her meaning is found in the expression to be seen, felt, and understood and known. So she's saying here, or they're saying here that as we are sort of, all this stuff is happening for us upon the surface, it's also her learning. So it's literally like the neurons of your thoughts, like that is sort of like, think of each of us as like a thought or something that would be going through her mind. The story that you're living out is something that she might be feeling or thinking about, right? And so, yeah, we are sort of acting it out for her. The next paragraph, they say, you are as well one who dwells within her expression of your own being. The two existences are counterparts, mirror of one another's form of expression. You are undergoing your own revolution in time as she is as well. Her surface shifts as yours does now. Your being enfolds all that it is and finds among the many voices those threads of what you are and wish to express in now. Okay, here we are. So this is the part I think that's really important to pull out of this, is that they're saying that the two existences are counterparts, mirrors of one another's form of expression, that we're going through our own revolution in time. So it's sort of like this idea that I love that it's such a simple phrase, but it really does mean across all time and dimension, we are going through a revolution of our being in every way as we are learning and evolving, right? That it's a constant revolution of our many layers of self, and so is she. Her surface shifts as your does now. So her surface, and we think about this with the earth changes, and I think that's why they chose the wording here. Her surface shifts as ours does now. So we are shifting. Our energy is shifting, right? Who we are is shifting. So the surface of us shifts as we change inside, and so is she. And that's, I think, really what they're trying to express right now, that we are, a lot is coming up to be healed just for us, but also for her. And that's going to show up for her a little differently, right? A little differently. All right. Now we go into, okay, she, the earth, is being led on a journey much as you are. Her now unfolding is as yours, but for hers, temporal constraints do not evolve as how you're constructed. You live between dimensions, and she is now a force of magnitude to engulf the many presences where you are housing. But she is many times the same being in all places. Her now of fertility does not evolve as your being does. She remains in place. Her understanding evolves with your expression, and she does now embody the furor of many voices seeking expression. And this does now erupt within her. Therefore, she must now evolve her planetary being. So this is a little bit hard to understand, but I guess the best way I can understand it. So they're saying here that she's on a journey too. She's on a learning journey. So the planet is a conscious self, and the soul of a planet could embody as many different beings, and she happened to embody as a planet. So here she is being our planet. And so hers unfolding is just like ours, but she's not living in time the same exact way that we are. It's different for her, that we are experiencing these different timelines and these different sort of many different aspects of ourself. Like we could have had a past life, many past lives. You probably have had thousands of past lives. But for her, they're saying that she stays the same, that she's kind of moving through her own timeline differently. And what's interesting about that is I think, okay, how do we understand that? How is it that Earth doesn't have as many evolutions as we do, as we're running all around on top of her? And I think if you go back to that idea of us as neurons, of us as thoughts that are running around on her surface, that you can remember yourself from before, many different ages, but your conscious mind, as you're thinking of yourself in those different ages, stays the same. So you can go to those different places and still be you. And I think that's why they're saying here that the Earth, that we are our frame of reference in terms of all these different lives, she may be present in the same way in each of them. On a timeline that is, in other words, she's kind of, as we think of time going through it, we may be alive there and there and there and there, but she's the same all the way through, if that makes sense. And I think it's in the same way that we are the same, even as we're thinking back to how we were in all these different periods in our own life. I hope that helps to make sense. It's a little bit of it's a complex one to understand. I think they tried to break it down, but it's still a mind bender. You're saying, do you think that might also mean literal earth shifts? Yes, I do. I think that's why they chose it, the surface changing. I think that's why they said it that way. So I think they're referring to earth shifts. You're saying, I just got a hit about volcanoes, earthquakes, and tsunamis as you said that. Yeah, I think that's what she's referring to, or what they're referring to, I mean. All right, so they go on, next paragraph. You are a force upon her and influence her now. You make her feel ready for what comes to her own understanding. You are part and parcel of each other in this now housing, but your tie to different dimensions of self creates an evolution in understanding to be felt across the barriers of possible expression. It makes certitude and understanding. It creates layers in your own housing that refract all possibility and potential for all to see and understand your meaning. Many layers of self felt keenly to aid the growth of all comprehending. So here they're saying that us and the earth, they're saying we are part and parcel of each other in this now housing. So in our embodiment, and that's kind of what I was mentioning before, that we are made of the earth, that we are part of the earth, that we are like the neurons on her surface, or we're like her thoughts, her experience. Like, so she is experiencing our experience through us in the same way that we experience our own thoughts. But your tie to different dimensions of self creates an evolution and understanding. So us having this ability to be layered with all these different selves, to be carrying information from all these different lifetimes, and to have these tethers, these sort of portals they talked about, where we're connected to other lives and have these threads that continue. So this, you're tied to different dimensions of self, creates an evolution and understanding to be felt across all barriers of possible expression. So it gives us this much broader surface across which we can learn and understand things. So like in the same way that we get to play out all these different aspects, where we can play one drama and play all these different roles, right? It gives us this much greater, much deeper understanding. So they're saying here, it creates layers in your housing that refract all possibility and potential for all to see and understand your meaning. So it says there's all these different layers of who you've been, many layers of self felt keenly. And that's why we have to embody, is we want to experience it fully. We want to really know what it is, both to be the schmuck and to be the schmucky. We want to really feel that, so we can say, yeah, I know what that is. I know that experience, right? Many layers of self to aid the growth of all comprehending. So we don't want anybody to have to come back and do it again. We want to do it fully. We want to say, okay, this is what this experience is. All right. And then back to talking about the earth, they say, and she, meaning the earth, and she does fabricate the walls, the standing, the surface for your play upon reality, and lets you feel your housing, the central drama of it all. her being understanding you as you do, the layers underneath yourself. She is all of the many beings that encompass life where you are. The cacophony of voices you hear are all herself in this reality as well. The many beings serve her knowledge and comprehension of self. So they're really seeing the earth is everything here. Like everything embodied is the earth. And so all the people, all the animals, all the everything is also her. And she, as they go through their experiences, she is learning through them. Just like we experience our own thoughts, right? All of your thoughts are your own, and you experience all of them. And some of, so that's really what they're trying to say here is that all the layers of yourself and all of these ways in which you're able to bring in all these past influences create much more depth and meaning and understanding to really get a full grip on all the issues. Like you really couldn't if those same roles were played by all different people, right? To integrate all that experience all in one self, create such a richer picture. So, all right, this last paragraph here, they say, this complexity of life as it is known is divinely planned to suffer no lack of opportunity for all who live enfolded within this complex web of interrelated knowledge. The many do live for themselves and one another's improvement in comprehension. All evolve to become more of self, more of another, and to unite as one knowledge in the making. So I think that just like so perfectly sums it up, right? I mean, as one knowledge in the making, that we are all playing our role, our part to, yes, grow as a soul, and to also experience all sides of things, to have that complete knowledge of what it is to be and to exist and to feel a particular thing, and then to share that with the collective and with the earth, right? Both, right? Everything we know goes into the Akashic Records, is shared with the universe, but also the earth feels it through our physical body. So it's the layers and layers and layers of our experience, and how, like they said, they said that we're experiencing it for ourselves, for each other, for the earth, for all humanity, for the universe, for God. We're experiencing it for everything. So wow, right? And you're saying, I bet Gaia also has to repeat the lesson that is hard for her too. As each of us heal, it helps her, right? It does, yeah, for sure. Like she is healing too. She's on a journey, and there is a progression of healing. So she has to evolve as a being in the same way that we do. So yeah, absolutely. So our healing is super helpful to her. And if you look at, like, humanity is a progression. Like, we're not just standing still. We are hashing the similar issues over and over and over again, but collectively look at our progression in terms of the brutality of humanity over time. Like, if we look back in history and look at how brutal things were, and how, even though you would say things are not perfect by any means, but we have learned. We really have. And she is experiencing that through us. So yeah. And you're saying, let's see, the ley lines we were discussing, Anne. Yeah, and now remind me. I think, remember we talked about that. The ley lines in the earth in terms. So can you add a little bit more on that to remind me, so I can add that in? You see, we will be able to remember all of our lifetimes as this shift continues to evolve. Will we be able to remember our lifetimes? Good question. I don't know how we will access all of that. If it'll come in as more understanding, we'll have to see. Like, I do know that you probably have had your own awarenesses of where you feel like something is a past life, or you have that knowingness, right? I know for myself, I remember there was a time that I think I was back in high school. I was just telling someone this story. It was so interesting. I was back in high school, and I was looking through a history book, and I wasn't that interested, to be honest. Not that interested. I was scanning for like a quiz. I was like, trying to download information as fast as I can so I would pass the quiz. And it was about all these explorers, and I was looking through all these explorers. And then there was one, like, all of them was, these different names. There was one that just jumped out at me, that it was like, and I felt this liking. I felt like, oh, I like that guy, and for no reason at all, like completely incomprehensible. And then I found out later through an experience, a massive healing experience in my life, that I was that guy, and I know all this stuff about his life that I would have no reason to know. And then when I looked him up, I didn't realize it was him until I did some other research down the road, and then I found who this person was, and I researched, and every single detail I had remembered was accurate. So I knew without having any understanding that I didn't even know why I knew. Like, I didn't know at the time that I was him. I just knew that I really liked that guy. It was familiar to me, it jumped out. And so you probably have had an experience like that. So, I think we'll remember in that way. Our last Wisdom Soup, we had a guy on, Robert Snow, who had a super interesting story about his past life regression and as a painter, and how he's an ex-police detective, and he went in and did all this research to uncover everything in his story that he came through in the regression. It was all true. All of it was true. And so I think, will we remember it all? I think if it's important to our experience, right? I think that our guides and our angels are careful to try to guide us, to keep us on task, to keep us focused on what it is we're supposed to be doing. So the things that we're meant to learn and to discover about ourselves that are going to be useful in this life, those for sure come up. You're saying, and you're saying, Rebecca, said the ley lines in the earth. We were feeling Gaia from the ley lines. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And some of you may have, and so what Rebecca and I were talking about, some of you may have sensitivity to what's happening with the earth in the ley lines of the earth. You say, I feel that way about Nikola Tesla. Oh, I wonder, maybe you were Nikola Tesla. That's really cool. I love this metaphor so much. Brilliant. We are in relation to the earth is like our own thoughts in relation to us. Hey there, Steve. Good to see you. So anyways, so thank you guys so much for joining me today. Interesting message, right? Super interesting message to understand ourselves. I love this idea that everything is happening simultaneously, that these areas where we overlap in our experience, where we have these things that are the same, whether it be the people that we know, the livelihoods that we have, possessions that we own. Think of each of those as a portal that connects you back to that lifetime, that opens you up to knowledge and experience and helps you to integrate, right, as a soul, to integrate all the learning that's come. And then as you heal the issues from those experiences, it heals across all of those timelines through all those dimensions, which is it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, all right, you guys, thanks so much for joining me. Really fun to spend the morning with you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you next Friday live. Bye-bye.